You know that feeling when nothing is really wrong, but nothing feels right either. Your days work. Your routine works. You wake up, move through the hours, answer messages, finish what needs to be finished. From the outside, everything looks fine. If someone asked, you'd probably say you're okay. And maybe you even believe that most of the time. But there's a quiet moment, usually when things slow down, when you notice something is off. Not broken, not dramatic, just off. Like life is running, but you're slightly behind it, watching instead of fully being there. This isn't a crisis, it's subtler than that, and that's what makes it harder to explain. A lot of people think something has to fall apart before you're allowed to question how you feel. But that's not how it usually works. Most of the time, life doesn't collapse. It just becomes repetitive, predictable, safe. You learn how to function inside it. You get good at it, actually. You know what to say, how to act, how to move through conversations without really being present. You smile at the right moments. You laugh when expected. You do what you're supposed to do. And because nothing is visibly wrong, you don't feel justified questioning it. So you keep going, telling yourself this is just how life is, that this is what adulthood feels like. What's strange is that this feeling doesn't come from failure. It comes from stability, from everything being handled, from problems being managed instead of exploding. There's food in the fridge, bills are paid, work is moving. People around you seem fine. So why wouldn't you be? That question lingers quietly. You don't ask it out loud. You don't even fully form it in your head. It shows up as restlessness, as boredom that isn't boredom, as scrolling longer than you planned, as staying busy so you don't have to sit with your thoughts too long. It's easier to stay occupied than to notice the emptiness underneath the routine. And the tricky part is that this emptiness doesn't feel urgent. It doesn't scream for attention. It whispers. It waits. You can ignore it for years if you want. Many people do. They build entire lives around avoiding that quiet feeling. More work, more distractions, more goals, more noise. And none of it is wrong. It just doesn't solve the thing you can't quite name. Because the problem isn't that you're doing something wrong. It's that you might be doing everything right, for a version of life that doesn't fully fit you anymore. Sometimes it shows up as exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Other times, it's a sense that time is moving faster than it should. Weeks blur together. Months pass without much memory attached to them. You can't point to anything bad, but you also can't point to much that feels deeply meaningful. And that's uncomfortable to admit. Because meaning feels like a big word, like something you're supposed to have figured out. So instead of naming it, you downplay it. You tell yourself you're just tired, or unmotivated, or that you need a vacation. And maybe you do. But even on the vacation, that feeling sometimes follows. This isn't about being ungrateful. You can appreciate your life and still feel disconnected from it. Those two things can exist at the same time. Gratitude doesn't cancel emptiness. And emptiness doesn't mean you failed. It usually means you've outgrown something quietly, slowly, without a clear moment where it happened. You didn't wake up one day different. You just kept going. And one day noticed that the life you built no longer asks much of you emotionally. It runs smoothly, almost too smoothly, like a machine that doesn't need you to be fully awake to operate. There's also a kind of loneliness inside this feeling. Not the obvious kind where you're alone, but the kind where you're surrounded by people and still feel unseen. Because how do you explain a problem that doesn't have sharp edges? How do you say, everything is fine, but I don't feel connected to it, without sounding dramatic or ungrateful? So you don't say it. You keep conversations light. You joke. You nod. You listen. And inside, there's a sense that something important is happening quietly, without words. Something asking for your attention, but not demanding it. If you're experiencing this, it doesn't mean you need to fix your life overnight. It doesn't mean you need to burn everything down or make some huge change. Sometimes the first step isn't action. It's honesty, not with the world, with yourself. Admitting that okay isn't the same as alive, that functioning isn't the same as feeling present, that being busy isn't the same as being fulfilled. These realizations don't come with instructions, they just come as awareness. And awareness on its own can feel unsettling. You might try to ignore that awareness at first. Most people do. They tell themselves it will pass, that it's just a phase. And maybe it is. But even phases have something to teach you. This one is often about alignment, about noticing where your life is efficient but not nourishing, where it looks complete from the outside but feels thin on the inside. That doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're paying attention. This phase of life doesn't get talked about much because it's hard to dramatize. There's no villain, no clear mistake, just a quiet sense that you're living on the surface of your own days. But noticing that is important. It means you haven't completely numbed yourself to your own experience. It means some part of you still wants depth, still wants to feel more than just functional. You don't need answers right now. You don't need to label this feeling or turn it into a problem to solve. Sometimes it's enough to pause and admit gently that something feels off, to sit with that feeling instead of rushing to distract yourself from it, to allow yourself to be curious rather than critical. This isn't the end of anything. It's often the quiet beginning of a deeper connection with your own life, one that starts not with fixing, but with listening. There's something else about this feeling that's easy to miss. It often shows up when you finally have space to breathe. When the chaos slows down, when there's no urgent problem demanding your attention, you'd think that's when peace would arrive. But instead, that's when the quiet discomfort becomes louder, not because it's new, but because there's finally room to notice it. When life stops pushing you, you start asking yourself questions you've been postponing. And those questions don't come aggressively. They arrive softly, almost politely. Asking things like, is this really it? Or, when did everything start feeling so flat? What makes this confusing is that you can still enjoy moments. You can laugh, you can have good days. That doesn't disappear. But underneath those moments, there's a sense of disconnection that doesn't fully go away. It's like watching your own life through glass. You're present, but slightly removed, engaged, but not fully invested. And because nothing is obviously wrong, you don't feel entitled to slow down or question it. You tell yourself to be grateful, to push through, to stop overthinking. And for a while, that works, until it doesn't. At some point, you may notice that your inner world feels quieter than it used to. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet, the kind where emotions don't rise as easily, where excitement feels muted, where even frustration feels distant. That emotional flattening is often misunderstood. It's not that you don't care. It's that you've been operating in survival mode for so long that feeling deeply stopped being a priority. You learned how to function first. Feeling became optional. This is also why advice doesn't land very well during this phase. People tell you to find your passion or change your mindset or be more positive, and none of that feels wrong. It just feels incomplete. Because the issue isn't attitude, it's connection. It's the slow drift away from yourself that happens when life becomes more about maintenance than meaning. And reconnecting isn't something you can rush. It's not something you can fix with one decision or one bold move. Sometimes reconnection starts in very small ways, paying attention to what drains you instead of what impresses others, noticing which parts of your day feel heavy and which feel light, allowing yourself to admit boredom, even if everything is technically fine. These aren't dramatic revelations. They're quiet observations, but they matter, because they shift your focus from how your life looks to how it actually feels when you're inside it. It's important to understand that feeling off doesn't mean you're broken. It often means you're transitioning even if you don't know toward what yet. You're between versions of yourself. Between who you were when the current structure of your life made sense and who you're becoming now that it doesn't fit the same way. That in-between space can feel uncomfortable, unclear, lonely. But it's also honest. It's real. And it's something many people experience without ever giving themselves permission to talk about it. If you're here right now, listening to this, it might be because some part of you recognizes this feeling. Not sharply, not dramatically, just enough to pause. And that pause matters. You don't need to solve anything today. You don't need a plan. Sometimes awareness is the work. Sitting with the truth that you're functioning but not fully alive, and allowing that truth to exist without judgment, is already a step forward. This isn't about fixing your life. It's about listening to it, about noticing where it's asking for more honesty, more presence, more depth. And those things don't arrive all at once. They unfold slowly, quietly. Often when you stop trying to outrun the discomfort and let yourself feel it without labeling it as a problem. Feeling off is not the end of something. More often, it's the beginning of paying attention again.